Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Liam Looks At, and today we are actually looking at Death Stranding 2. I'm going to go ahead and just say right now, I don't have a ton of footage of this game. I played a lot of it on my portal, so that is why the footage is really just from one kind of capture session. But that being said, I'm pretty excited to talk about this one because it is a really, really great game, and it is, in my opinion, what a sequel really should be. So I want to get into it. Really start off with, I'll go through my kind of history with Death Stranding 1. Death Stranding 1 was a game that had been shown at E3 and all these press conferences all the time, and I was completely not interested. I'd never played any Metal Gear game before. I'd never played any Kojima games, so my interest level was pretty much none. The trailers being all kind of cryptic and confusing did nothing for me. And then when I heard the game was a walking simulator, which was kind of how it was described by a lot of, upset people, I really didn't care, but there was something about it that I was definitely interested in. I always like games that have a lot of exploration. I like games that, you know, have really different environments, and from everything I had seen for Death Stranding, it kind of did pique my interest, and that's really what made me want to play the original game. I remember watching my brother play it for a little bit, and I just thought, delivering it sounds pretty cool. I used to be a delivery driver, so that kind of has a soft spot in my heart for like any video game that does delivering. I'm like, oh, I used to do this, so that always makes it fun. But the more I played it, the more I really, really enjoyed the systems, and it actually became the first ever Kojima game I beat. And once I actually beat the original game, turns out I was completely floored by the story. I thought it was really great, and it inspired me or motivated me to actually go and finally play the other Metal Gear games. But we're not talking about Metal Gear. We're talking about Death Stranding 2. There are a couple things in Death Stranding 1 that I think, it needed some help with. Combat was never really its strong suit, and it wasn't trying to be. But there were just a few little nitpicks that, I would never have really thought about until I played this game and realized how great it is. This game is truly what a sequel needs to be, which is a step up in every single system, in every single direction, doing the things that you don't really think about but are much better. So I'll give an example. Big part of the game is obviously carrying packages and having a lot of deliveries and having a lot of cargo. And in the original game, you'd go into a menu, and you could automatically kind of manage your cargo. But you'd have to pause the game. You'd have to go in there. You'd have to hold the button. In this, they actually give you a really quick. You hit L1. You go over to hit one button, and it automatically does it. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're constantly picking up packages and wanting to be in the best kind of balance as possible, because that's very important in these games, having just a quick ability to do that instead of pausing the game and going in there is great. Another thing that I really liked is with the ladders, giving you the ability to just stack two ladders on top of each other and use them to extend it. Really, really helpful in the beginning parts of the game before you have a lot more tools, because I use ladders pretty much throughout my entire playthrough. That's something I really appreciated. As for the story, I thought the story was really, really good. It takes place a little bit after the original game. You and Lou, who is the BB from the original game, really are just hanging out in Mexico, enjoying your best life, when Fragile comes on and asks you to take a couple missions. And I don't want to really spoil a lot because I think the story is very important, but it does a very good job of getting you sucked in immediately. It's got a pretty wild opening, I would say. It starts off pretty slow in terms of getting you reacclimated with things, but story wise, it's pretty balls to the wall. I would say even above the first game, story wise, I think it kind of gets right into it. And I know that Kojima had kind of made some comments, or I'd seen some comments where they wanted to essentially get that player base over the finish line. I know like Death Stranding 1 had like a kind of a low completion percentage, and I can definitely tell that with the story here, they were a little bit more focused on action and less about the world, but that's kind of what the first game's about. It built this world, it set the stage, so all of these weird things that Kojima came up with in terms of like the language and not the language, but the different things going on in the game, those were all built up in the original game, and those could be really slow moments. I remember especially the ka and the ha and all those things that they talk about in the original game, kind of were the slower parts. But once you kind of get it, now that you're in DS2, you can kind of just go right in. You don't have to have someone, re-explaining all these things to you. In terms of combat, this game does another thing that I think is really great. So the original game if any dead body, if not disposed of correctly in this world, will cause what's called a void out. Essentially, the big crater, big explosion, boom, everybody dies. So the original game, you really never ever wanted to use regular bullets. Why they were even offered to you, I don't know. So if you ever killed like a bad guy, you would have to then drop everything and get rid of that body, or the entire map would result in a void out. Something great about this game, which is all of the ammo essentially is a jack of all trades. It works against the BTs, it works against the humans, it works against the robots, it works against everybody. So you don't have to constantly worry about, do I have enough weapons for this? Do I have weapons for this? Some weapons are definitely better for different enemies, like the BTs. Still, blood weapons are going to be the best. So you feel like blood grenades or boomerang and things like that. But definitely a welcome addition. One less thing to worry about, one less thing to take you out of the action, so to speak. Obviously, this is not the most action-packed game. That being said, the ending is incredible. Very action-packed. But this is still at the core. If you don't like hey, you got a delivery, take this delivery to point A to point B, and you might have really nothing. You may have no conflict. You may have no kind of any kind of issues. It just could be a quick walk. The only thing I think I would not even dock it negative points, but the only thing I realized while playing this game is I feel like in an attempt to get that completion metric higher, like I'd mentioned, the vehicles are much, much more feasible. While that is a positive in the sense of if you're going to use a vehicle, it really works. I did find halfway through the game, I could just easily jump in a car and drive from point A to point B. With really no issues. The original game had a lot. The terrain was much more unforgiving when it came to vehicles. Like you could really not drive unless you were on the road. But in this game specifically, you can really easily drive from point A to point B. There's a lot of kind of flatter ground. So having that, to me, is one of those things where you kind of have to handicap yourself, I think, to really experience how much this game has to offer. That being said, they did add a new difficulty mode after I had already completed the game that apparently adds a little bit of extra difficulty where the vehicles are not as useful, and I really like that. If I would ever go back and replay it, or when I would go back and replay it, that is definitely what I would do and play it on that difficulty. I think that sounds a little bit closer to what the original game was kind of going for. And I get it, games change and they have to make adjustments to difficulty and things like that to get in a wider audience. But that is something I definitely noticed. So if you're somebody who maybe really liked the story but didn't like all of the walking, then this might be an improvement. For me, someone who enjoyed the journey and the taking all your equipment and things like that and kind of planning out your routes, just be aware that you almost have to handicap yourself to be able to experience all of those things like in the original game. But overall, I think this game is amazing. I really, really enjoyed this one. I think it is better than the first in terms of gameplay. Story-wise, I think as a whole, while it is a little bit easier to kind of get into, I do think that the original game, when you're wrapping up in the end, was much, much more interesting in terms of the mystery that had been going on. This game didn't have as many mysteries, and so the ending didn't feel as kind of, oh my gosh, here's payoff for all these 40 hours. It was more so kind of continuing to answer those questions that you had. But yeah, this game is great. I definitely give it a thumbs up. I know that's kind of a staple here that if I complete a game, it means I like it. I'm probably not going to have a ton of reviews of games I absolutely hate unless I am like specifically wanting to get more reviews out and I want to complete games that I didn't like. But yeah, that's pretty much this game. Coming up next, I'm not sure what's going to be next. I did record all of the Diablo 4 expansions. I completed those. I don't know if I want to review them because they're not technically games, but I did complete those. And then I've got to get back on Fallout 2, but the problem is I'm having some issues recording footage for it. I'm having a lot of issues with Fallout 2 specifically. I've done everything I possibly can, so I really do need to get some footage of that. But I also just want to get it kind of done. And then Kingdom Come 2 is still kind of, I would say I'm probably like a couple hours away from finishing that, so that should be ready to go here soon. And then Stalker 2 is another one that I'm less close because I'm really doing every mission in that game and taking my sweet time. So I'm not gonna rush that one, but that's another one. But yeah, this took a long time to get out. So hopefully everybody stuck around. If you do watch, this is really just for me to kind of log my games that I've completed this year and something fun to do. So that's why don't take the editing too seriously. Aren't too concerned with it. But yeah, thanks everybody for checking it out, and I'll check you on the next one. See ya.